After unverified reports were leaked by BuzzFeed indicating that Donald Trump allegedly hired prostitutes to urinate on a bed that the Obamas allegedly slept on, Putin made some strong statements against the report, saying that, no, that's not the case, I don't think that happened. But then he made a statement about sex workers in Russia, saying that Russian sex workers are, of course, the best in the world, which was a strange statement to make, especially in that context. Now, interestingly enough, there is a very bleak reality for sex workers in Russia that doesn't get a lot of attention. And I think Daily Beast did a good job in looking into it. And because of regressive policies in Russia related to both sex workers and the LGBT community, AIDS and HIV is running rampant. So let me give you the details on that. Now, Russia has one of the fastest growing HIV epidemics in the world, accounting for 8 out of 10 new infections in the Eastern European and Central Asia area, or parts of the world. So they shame people, there's stigma associated with it, and they don't focus on things like protection and prevention, things like comprehensive sex ed, for instance. And so the problem continues to get worse. The most effective HIV prevention strategies for people who use drugs are against the law, and comprehensive sexuality education is not offered in schools. Now, the most insane part about all of this is that Russia had a big influence on the UN and the way that the UN wants to deal with the issue of HIV, okay? So apparently last June in New York, it worked to prevent comprehensive sexuality education and reproductive health services from being included in the political declaration of the United Nations high-level meeting of ending AIDS. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you know, it reminds me of right-wingers everywhere. I mean, first of all, like Trump, you know, can't you just see him doing what Putin did? Now, look, sex workers are bad and you shouldn't do that, but we have the best in the world. We're #1 in sex workers, right? Mm-hmm. But then the second thing is turning around and actually your record is abysmal. I mean, I don't know what your qualifications are for determining that you have the best sex workers. Are they the hottest? Are they the cleanest? I don't know how Putin's measuring that, and I'm not sure I want to know, right? But in reality, his record is miserable. That's another right-wing trait. You know, you puff up your chest, but in reality, you do the exact opposite. And then to go further and say, yeah, I'd like to spread my miserable record across the world. I'd like you to do the same thing I do, and things that have been proven to be disastrous, because I don't know if you know this, but a lot of people have sex with sex workers. That's why they're sex workers. And then it's not like, oh yeah, the sex workers, they're immoral if you're a right wing or a religious person and you feel that way. And they got HIV. But then the people they had sex with also get HIV, and then their wives get HIV, on it goes. It's a disaster.
It is a disaster.
And by the way, you should care about every human being. I know, outrageous.
Yeah, regardless of what they do for a living. And, you know, look, the best way to prevent something like this from happening is progressive policies, right? And I'm not just saying that because I'm a progressive, but okay, let's take sex workers out of it. Let's focus on a huge epidemic that we're coping with here in the United States pertaining to heroin addiction. So obviously heroin, in a lot of cases, is injected. And people who are addicted to heroin sometimes share needles. So that's one way that AIDS and HIV gets transmitted from one person to another. So what has happened in countries like Canada is they have opened up safe injection sites where doctors will administer the drug and of course offer rehabilitation to help them fight the addiction. And the whole point is not like, hey, we want people to do heroin. No, they're doing it because they understand that it's a public safety concern. And so these people, you know, are in a terrible situation. If they're sharing needles, they're going to get this disease. Then they're going to possibly spread it to other family members, other individuals. It's a public safety concern. And so progressive ideas actually work in cases like this. You need to educate people, you need to help them. You don't, you know, treat it as if it's a taboo and attach a stigma to it so more and more people get this disease and don't get the help that they need.
So right-wingers have a caricature of what progressives think. They think like, oh, you guys want everybody to do heroin. Why the hell would we want people to do heroin? It's like they think like, they project, because in their mind, they want everybody to act based on their beliefs and their morals, right? So they assume we do likewise. I don't care what you do. If you want to do heroin, I think it's a terrible idea, but I'm not you, so you're the master of your own domain. I actually believe in freedom and liberty, right? But we certainly don't want people to do it.
Right.
That leads to a great number of problems, let alone the fact that I care about that person, right? Then you've got the needles, and then you've got everybody in his family, and you've got all the fallout that comes from it. But that doesn't mean that since I don't want him to do heroin, I'm going to punish him, and then I won't give him clean needles, and he'll see, ha ha. No, but that's stupid, because then that's going to hurt other people.
Right.
And I don't think giving him needles encourages him, it keeps it safe. I mean, look, I haven't had any personal experience with a heroin addict, but from everything I see, it's a little hard to get them to stop. So it's not like, oh, well, I didn't give him clean needles, so that'll show him and he'll stop tomorrow. No, likely he won't stop. He'll just use dirty needles and get everybody else sick too.
Yeah, so these are the type of regressive policies that Russia is dealing with. And I thought about Pussy Riot the other day and how outraged the world was when members of Pussy Riot protested in a Catholic church, and then they spent 2 years in prison as a result of that.
It's unbelievable, man.
I know, it's unbelievable. And I didn't think that it would get to a point where protesters here or members of the media here would face similar reactions from politicians or those in power. But I feel like it's not that far-fetched. I mean, I feel like the crazy things that we reported on happening in Russia in 2012 are now slowly but surely going to happen here.
We're only 5 days in.
I know, it's
There's
terrifying.
4 years left to go. Buckle up. The corporate media has multi-million-dollar anchors. We have you guys. Go to tytnetwork.com/go, and you can help hire investigative reporters that'll do real journalism.